This is Focus with Jack Caudill.
And good evening, I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about Rapid City Collective Impact, getting an idea of where the group is now and where they're going from here. Three guests with us to talk about that. Liz HAMBURG is the Executive Director of the Black Hills Area Community Foundation, now the home for the Rapid City Collective Impact Initiative. Charity Doyle, she is with the Rapid City Collective Impact Project Manager for the proposed One Heart Transformation Campus, and Julie Oberlander, the Rapid City Collective Impact Communications Director. Now, a little background. Rapid City Collective Impact first got rolling back in 2015, gathering information about what kind of needs there are in the area. They started providing assistance to nonprofits back in 2016, started focusing their work on specific areas back in 2017. Liz, we're going to start with you looking at the origins of the organization. How have they evolved and developed from where they were back then?
Initially, we started with consultants who came to town and did a lot of the research that laid the groundwork for Rapid City Collective Impact. And then last summer, the initiative was moved into the home of the Black Hills Area Community Foundation. We serve as the fiscal sponsor for some of the work, and we also work with some of the programming, specifically with affordable housing and food security.
Now, Charity, you've been with Rapid City Collective Impact for quite a while now. How have you seen the group evolve from where it was, where you started, to where you are today?
Evolve? I was hired to hit the ground running and make some things happen, and so I think that's really the framework. Maybe the evolution isn't necessarily an evolution, but it's more of seeing fruits born from the efforts, which has been really fun to see in all three of the initiatives that we're working on. To see some things out in the community and people talking about it and seeing the results, that's been really amazing to see.
Now, Julie, as you look at this organization, as you see it develop and grow as time goes on, how do you see where it's going and where you've gotten to now?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we've done is really create some great relationships, made some great connections with different people and different organizations in the community. And those relationships, kind of as Charity said, we're really seeing the fruits of those. And we can talk more about it as we go, but we just earlier this week celebrated our food security efforts, and watching how those nonprofits, sometimes on their own, because they've come to the table of the Food Security Oversight Committee, now are working just sometimes one-on-one with another organization or a couple organizations to increase and enhance the work they're already doing. So I think you're gonna see even more of that, and I think the work that we've seen with food security can be translated into some of the other, maybe the affordable housing work. So we've seen some success in one area, so I foresee some of that being able to translate into other areas as well.
Now, you're talking about food security. That's one of the words, one of the phrases you guys have been throwing around a lot. When you say food security, what do you mean?
I mean, short answer is people being able to get 3 decent meals a day. The USDA may have a little different definition, but we really look at it as access to food options, because somebody might live down the street from, say, a convenience store, and that is very convenient. But if you're on food stamps or something along those lines, needing assistance of some kind, your dollars don't go very far there, right? So does it mean that we need to have more access to charitable food sources? Does it mean that some of the people who are already providing food maybe need to do it at a little different time of day or a different time of week? So those are the things that we've been working on, and we're seeing more mobile pantries from Feeding South Dakota going into neighborhoods, instead of always expecting people to come to them, especially if people are working, which a lot of our community members are working poor. So if they can't get there during the regular pantry hours, the regular food bank hours, when can we help them find access to good food and good food options? So those are some of the kinds of things that we're working on. Can we guarantee every single person is going to be fed a great meal every single day? No, but nobody can. But we can work to make more options available for them, and that we are absolutely doing.
Now, Charity, you guys have done a lot of research into food security around the area. What have you found in what you guys have done? Questionnaires and research and studies. What have you guys found out here in this area?
That's not my
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'd be glad to talk about that, Jack. Last year, Rapid City Collective Impact worked with the City of Rapid City to map the city, looking at income levels and looking at food resources, charitable resources, grocery stores, convenience stores like Julie mentioned, to really get a visual picture of where the food sources are where the charitable sources are and who can get there. What is the distance for people to get there? At that time, we had a grocery, the grocery stores closed downtown, so it was you could see on paper the big gap that left for Rapid City for food. So we learned a lot from those maps, and through that and through interviews that were done, over 250 interviews were done of people who were accessing food. We're able to identify 13 different areas in Rapid City where we think gaps can be filled. And so that's where we are right now. We're working with different nonprofits. We've distributed 5 grants to different organizations who are doing collaborative work based on what we know to help fill those gaps.
So what are you doing to fill those gaps? What need is there, and what are you doing to fill that?
For example, one of the grants that we gave was to Youth and Family Services. Youth and Family Services provides a summer meal program for the kids in their program, but anybody over the age of 18 cannot be fed and have those funds from the state of South Dakota cover the cost of the meal. So the grant that we've given YFS is allowing them to let the accompanying adult of that child also eat. So as a result of that, they have more kids in their program. It's nearly doubled the participation in the program because more people can come and also get a meal.
So is there even a need for more than you're doing now? I mean, if you were able to add, could you continue doing that?
Absolutely, I do think so. But these are great first steps. And to bank off what Liz was saying, part of another partnership that formed with the food group was between Meals on Wheels and several of the organizations that are feeding kids this summer. So George Larson of Meals on Wheels said a few months ago, I can feed anybody 60 and older. When you put yourself in the position of somebody who maybe, again, is working poor or maybe struggles to have reliable transportation to get, good, nutritious food, you have many sites in Rapid City that provide good, nutritious meals to kids. A parent or a grandparent takes their kid there, and then they have to provide $3 or $4 to eat those same meals. Well, the organizations all said, we would love to feed the parents, but we don't have the resources to do it. They're reimbursed for the kids, they're not reimbursed for the adults. And this is where the YFS grant came in, and this is where Meals on Wheels is helping to those accompanying grandparents or guardians who are 60 and older. They're paying for those meals. And so we know, again, it's good, nutritious food because those organizations have to meet certain food guidelines. So I foresee that we may be able to expand some of that in the future, depending on need. I think we're going to see how these first 5 grants go and where they could be used in other places as well.
Do you find that there's a lot of people in the community that are unaware or surprised to see the food need that there is in town?
I think that people are I think ignorance is bliss. I think sometimes we just don't think of what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck if you've never done it or haven't done it for a very long time. We know there are different types of poverty. We know situational poverty is a short-term thing, and you have a lot of people say, well, when I came out of college, I didn't have a lot of money and I made it. Well, that's a lot different than someone who has never had somebody in their family be above the poverty line, or the closest people in their lives be above the poverty line. Charity can talk about this a lot better working on the One Heart stuff, but I think that we do kind of assume that there's all these resources out there and all these ways that people are helping, and there are a lot of people willing to help, but there's also a huge need. And so we don't want to be so reliant on these resources. We want to be able to lift people out of those situations too.
All right, we're going to take a break, and we will continue our look at collective impact, Rapid City, when we come back with this month's edition of Focus. And I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about Rapid City Collective Impact. One of their initiatives is a proposed transformation campus. Charity Doyle is the project manager for the proposed One Heart Transformation Campus. People not familiar with what you guys are planning to do down there, kind of give us a little rundown of what is it and what is your vision for what this will be?
Well, the vision is simple. We have a high number of people in our community that are struggling to meet basic needs and create that upward mobility so that they can get to a better place in life. So this campus is allowing them to live on a temporary basis, get their basic needs met while working on a plan that rebuilds all of the facets of their life that they would like to work on. And so it's more of like it takes a village concept to case management, where there's a team rather than a couple of people working with each individual or family, and that creates all the difference. So in the studying and research that we've done, it has shown such a high success rate because you have a team that understands all of the dynamics of a person, and people are complicated. We all come from different backgrounds and have different situations. So that person-centered planning is extremely important to put somebody that's been marginalized back into the driver's seat of their lives and actually create a vision for where they want to go.
So where did the idea come from? What made you guys decide this is something we need to have here?
Well, when you look at the spectrum of services within Rapid City, we have amazing service providers. We can provide emergency shelter through Cornerstone Rescue Mission. We can provide counseling and maybe substance abuse, rehabilitation, food services, et cetera. What we don't have is what we call the gap, right? And the gap is a place where people can learn all of the skills that they need. And maybe it's just navigating the barriers in the community. And so we go to college or we go to technical school or we do something to create options in life and to have options once we graduate that program. There's nothing for people that are coming from a background of poverty and housing insecurity to teach them the same thing. So they learn by the school of hard knocks, or and many of them, over 60% are working multiple jobs and they still can't meet basic needs. So we need to create that advantage. And when you think of truly transforming a community, it has to happen from the bottom up. And that's what we're doing. We're putting that effort and energy where the people are, meeting them where they are. And we have thousands of people within this community that are at or below the poverty line.
Now this is a massive undertaking to get
Yes.
this thing done. When did you start and where are you now?
Well, a lot of the research had been done prior to June of 2017. I came in as project manager in June of 2017 to take the concept, refine it, explore the feasibility, and then turn it into something tangible. And where we're at now is actually pretty exciting. So it went from just kind of fuzzy concept all the way to a clearly defined concept. The linchpin for the said concept is to have the providers working together as a team. If the providers aren't at the table, this concept would never fly. So the providers are now part of a very large team, not only working together in a really new and amazing way, but I mean developing policies and procedures and doing this as a team, so they have that direct input into how this facility will operate, from the various facets, from intake to how the recovery team's going to function, to who's going to provide what, and it's just been it's been remarkable. So
now you guys are going into the old NAU campus on Kansas
Yes,
City Street.
yes.
How about the physical transformation of this place? Where does that sit now?
Well, the physical transformation, one of the blessings that came with this site is that it doesn't need a whole lot of work. When we envisioned what this campus needed to look like and needed to provide, just conceptually, the campus it was a blessing from God, truly, because it has the living facilities, it has the buildings for the providers, it has the open space. We want people who are scraping by and barely making it in our community to walk onto that campus and go, this is for me, that we care that much that we want to do it. And so it's almost ready to go.
Liz HAMBURG is the Executive Director of Black Hills Area Community Foundation. How about the finances of the thing? This does not sound like a cheap project to get up and running.
Yeah, and that's one of the roles that Charity's playing right now, is to define what that budget will look like for the campus. As far as the work that's being done right now, we are housing the backbone team through the Black Hills Area Community Foundation as a fiscal sponsor.
Julie Oberlander is the Communications Director for Rapid City Collective Impact. As you see this project go, how do you see this developing from the beginning, from that first idea to where you are today?
Yeah, it's been pretty amazing because it was something that I know, actually going back several years in Rapid City, there were people who knew of this concept semi-modeled after Haven for Hope in San Antonio, where they said, like, look what they can put if you put everything kind of together and you consolidate those services and you give people an opportunity to have a place to stay while they move themselves forward in other aspects of their life. Look what can happen. And it's made dramatic differences for the community of San Antonio. So for several years now, it was kind of something like out there, like, oh, look what they can do in Texas. And there were a number of people here, though, who said, wouldn't it be great if we could do it here? Wouldn't it be great if we can do it here? The county, it took an aspect of that, Pennington County, and they worked to do it with their restoration center, which is going in near the county facilities downtown, and ideally next door to what will be One Heart. And so that served as kind of a catalyst to reopen that discussion of, hey, what could we do if we had the right space? And so as Charity said, it went from this cloud, this out there thing, like somebody else can do it. Now we're going, oh, we can do it too. And I think when you hear the providers talk, the people who do those direct services, it is very exciting because they see a lot of times on a small scale success stories, and I think they see this as something that could be serve more people in a bigger way. And so that's what I'd like to see. And I always tell people, I have 2 little boys growing up in Rapid City, and I would love it if they grew up in a town that didn't have, what's the poverty right now, 16%? 16.2% poverty. You know, I mean, that's, to me, unacceptable for a community the size of the city of Rapid City. We should be better, and I think we can be better, and when you have a lot of great services, we can move people more, but sometimes they're located all over town, right? And if people have to go from one place to another, again, maybe with unreliable transportation or maybe dependent on public transportation, it's really hard. Sometimes getting the assistance is a job in itself. So I think we can do better, and I think the providers see the vision too, and that's what makes it really exciting. I think we have a lot of people who are living in motels, living in substandard housing, doubled up with other people. These are the invisible homeless, if you will. They don't have their own secure place to stay. And One Heart could change that for them and could change a lot of lives.
Charity, one of the realities, anytime there's talk of putting homeless people somewhere, bringing them somewhere in town, there's going to be some pushback. How are you guys dealing with that, and is that an issue at this point?
It rears its head every once in a while, but how we're dealing with it is just through education. It's helping them understand where these people are coming from. And if you think about the biggest demographic within the spectrum that we're focusing on are single mothers that are working and they can't raise their own kids because they're working so hard trying to provide for their children and still not making it. So they're sacrificing everything. They can't provide fully for their children and they don't get to raise them because they're working so hard doing that. What if we can bring these single mothers onto the campus, get their basic needs met while they're taking classes, while they're creating that upward mobility? When I sit down and explain to some of the detractors what One Heart really is and who it will serve, most of them say, you know what, that's not what I thought it was. They think it's a homeless shelter. They think it's a place where someone's not going to have any skin in the game. And when you talk about rebuilding an entire life, that takes some work and it takes some dedication. So the people who will be enrolled there want something better out of life, and they're going to be the best partner to have.
All right, we have to take another break. We will continue our look at Rapid City Collective Impact, looking at their affordable housing initiative when we come back with this month's edition of Focus. I'm Jack Caudill. Welcome back to this month's edition of Focus. This month we're talking about Rapid City Collective Impact. Julie Oberlander is the Communications Director for Rapid City Collective Impact. Julie, back in June you guys released an affordable housing study that you had done. What did you find when you did that research?
Sure. The study was actually conducted by the Black Hills Knowledge Network and funded through the John T. Vikurovich Foundation, but it was all part of RCCI's Affordable Housing Initiative. And it was basically taking stock of Rapid City, what types of housing we have and what types we really need to meet the demand in our community. And I like to call it the great mismatch. That's the term the economists like to use a lot, was the mismatch, in the fact that, you know, our mid-level housing, we have actually a little bit of surplus, but the problem is you have a lot of people, say around the poverty line or maybe not even that low, but they're spending a tremendous amount on housing per month. Whereas, and then you have a lot of people who maybe could afford a little bit better housing, but because there's not maybe enough of that, then they're into that middle level category too. And so everybody's vying for the middle, and that's making those prices go up for the people in the middle. So it was very interesting. I think in some ways it probably wasn't, it doesn't tell us exactly how to solve it, but it does give us a really good understanding of what exists and what we could do going forward that would help. So that's what the study showed us, and we did have a housing summit, a second one actually in June also, to show some key stakeholders in our community, people from the city of Rapid City and developers, what that housing study said, and then to begin that conversation about, okay, where do we go now?
And Liz Hamburg is the Executive Director of the Black Hills Area Community Foundation. Now that you have the information, what do you do with it?
Good question. What we did at the Housing Summit in June was we created some different working groups and started conversations about leadership, who should take the helm to address these affordable housing issues. Other topics that were discussed were financing and education. Public policy is also a big part of this. What kind of barriers are builders and developers running into and trying to create this kind of housing? So the next steps, we're putting together some notes and a report to get out to the people that participated in the summit. And ultimately, what my personal belief is that we need a point person. With the food security work that we did with Rapid City Collective Impact, we supplied a grant for a food service coordinator who is housed now at Feeding South Dakota and is managing all of those partnerships and all of that work. Perhaps housing needs a similar point person to really take the lead and put the pieces together, break down the barriers, and provide a neutral central point to create the housing to fill the gaps that we have.
Now, Charity Doyle is the project manager for the One Heart Transformation Campus. When you look at the affordable housing needs, how much does that play into the need for what you're doing down there at One Heart?
Huge. A huge plays into the need, because one of the criteria for people being enrolled in the One Heart program is that they have a housing plan. So there needs to be a place for them to go when they graduate. They're not there to stay. It should be a way station, not a stopping point. And right now, some of the resources we have in the community, they get there, it should be a hand up, but they end up sticking there because that inventory is wonky. So I love this plan. I can't wait to see it in action. With all of these things in mind, we create that stability in the housing market. That's going to translate to stability in the economy, and with all of the efforts that are going on in Rapid City right now to really reshape what's going on economically, this piece is critical.
Now, Julie, one of the things we were talking about earlier, one of the other initiatives you guys have is emerging leaders. Yeah. What is that? What do you hope? What is it, and what do you hope to accomplish with it?
Our CCI's Emerging Leaders, this year's class is about 30 individuals in our community who are basically learning about and practicing collective impact strategies, and then also in their work supporting the One Heart and other RCCI projects. So one of the groups, for example, did a little bit of work for Charities Project to talk about, I shouldn't call it Charities Project, she hates that, but worked on the One Heart Project to look at, okay, so from the education standpoint and the life skills standpoint, what resources are available now and what isn't available. And one of the things I just heard from one of the leaders of that particular group of emerging leaders, they said, legal services for people in poverty are really an issue. There are quite a few people who will do criminal defense for those who maybe can't pay, but the civil stuff. So if you have an issue with a landlord, or you have, maybe don't know how to deal with an employer, or, back pay or something like that, that sometimes, those are critical legal things that a person who is just trying to get by day to day doesn't have somebody necessarily on their side to help them in the legal realm. And so that's one of the things that the emerging leaders discovered in their work, and they're working to help the team work on that. Some of the others are, just helped with the Homeless Connect.
You got to wrap it up quick. We are just about out of time.
Okay, but, they're a great group. We appreciate it.
All right, Julie Oberlander, Charity Doyle, and Liz Hamburg, I want to thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for watching. Hope to see you again the first Sunday night of next month with the next edition of Focus.